Hello, welcome everybody. We're excited to have with us today Pier Luigi Sigismondi. Pier Luigi is the president of Worldwide Food and Beverage Group at Dole Sunshine Group. We're going to be having a conversation about sustainability, learning a little bit more about people in the field and the topic, their views on the topic. Pier Luigi, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me here.
Okay, we'll start with, I think, the most difficult question. Sustainability can be a large and nebulous topic. People have different definitions for it. How do you define business sustainability?
That's a great way to start. Actually, if you look at what companies have been doing for decades or centuries, is to sustain themselves by the creation of shareholder value. If you look at the biggest companies in terms of market cap, just 10 years ago, you had companies like Apple, Exxon, PetroChina, Shell, ICBC. Some of them for us are not relevant anymore. Actually, if you look at the market caps of the top 5 companies today, it's all tech companies in Silicon Valley. So the question about sustainability is not just about the environment, but also about how companies actually thrive and create shareholder value over generations. And if you look at that combined with the impact that businesses make to the environment and society, that combination overall is what makes a business sustainable in the long term. So for any corporation, it's not enough anymore to actually satisfy shareholders. There are consumers, stakeholders, and others out there who are expecting companies to do good for the environment, for society, and that's what has now evolved into ESG standards, which is for environment, social, and governance standards, which companies need to comply into. And that's where we are right now as Dole as well.
Perfect. I think a lot of us know Dole from the little stickers we'd see on the fruits, on the bananas, pineapples. But can you tell us a little bit more about the company and kind of how sustainability plays any part in it?
Well, this is one of the most sustainable companies because it was actually established 170 years ago. So Dole was actually, as a brand, created in 1901, but it was actually part of Castle & Cook, which is a company that started exactly 170 years ago. So for over a century, this business has been providing good nutrition around the world. It started in Hawaii with James Dole at the time, actually migrating from the east to the west. He went to Hawaii, actually, to start this great business, which still thrives today. So I'm very proud to be the person now in charge, together with some of my colleagues, to all of my colleagues, to make this company even more successful, more sustainable, and to leave a legacy behind. It's a company that started industrializing farming activities, being the first in many automations to bring good food, the goodness of the earth, to consumers in America and actually beyond around the world. So today we're very excited to be a company that continues to thrive with growth in a market that is becoming more and more convinced that good food is not just something good for you, but it's also a human right. And that we can talk more about that later on.
So this is a perfect segue. I mean, as president, you probably have a lot of roles and responsibilities and things you worry about. Where does sustainability come into your daily tasks?
It's part of how we do business. Sustainability is not like a function that sits somewhere that is aiming at measuring carbon footprint or trying to reduce single-use plastics. We do see sustainability as the way we do business every single day. It starts with us wanting to access 1 billion consumers out there. Our intent is to grow the business by providing good food to as many people as possible. So growth is part of our sustainability plans. With that, we want to offer good food, which means zero added sugars. So we embarked in the process of removing all processed added sugars from our products. Believe it or not, we still have 40% of our goods which have added sugars because consumers have got used to that sort of high indulgent type of sensory profile that we want to take away, because there's nothing more healthy than the fructose and the sugars that come naturally from the fruits that we provide in the processed packaged goods that we have. So we are moving into doing good food by removing all the added sugars. Then we want to avoid any losses in our supply chain, food waste. So we are upcycling every kind of fruit, whether it's nice or ugly, in ways that we can convert it in good nutrition. By removing all the plastics from our packaging and our portfolio. So by 2025, we're aiming to actually having no more plastics in our products, which is quite another, quite a challenging task. If we do so, we will also be working in removing or reducing our carbon footprint. So we want to become a carbon neutral company by 2030, which means that we will be net zero in terms of emissions as a company by satisfying the needs of communities and consumers and partners around the world, so we can create shared value for everyone, including our shareholders as well. If we do this, we'll continue to grow and establish a business that will be successful and will continue this journey for decades to come. So I've just explained in few words what being a sustainable company is all about. Wanting to grow, providing good services, good food to our consumers by preserving or improving the planet conditions in how we do farming, how we deal with our farmers, how we actually manage packaging with zero net carbon emissions, and also doing good for the communities around the world. So that's what a sustainable business is meant to be, which then turns out to be financially successful. It starts growing, shareholders are happy. And so that's the kind of challenge and the journey we are in today.
As you talk kind of about this journey, Pier Luigi, I think you did a wonderful job talking about this triple bottom line and all the different elements, how you're working with suppliers, making sure their societal needs are met, the customer profile, the changing in the product itself with added sugars. You mentioned in the beginning, it's beyond just simple ESG metrics or beyond something you put, it's in the core of the business at Dole. How did this evolution come to play out to reality? I mean, it's a wonderful summary you gave, but there's a lot of important things that you folks are doing in the meat of the operations in the supply chain that needed to be changed. So what was the trigger that got all this moving forward? Or how do you put all this difficult things into play?
We realized in 2018 that our company was not growing anymore. The top line, the bottom line were both slowly, like a frog in a boiling pan, declining year after year. And with the new management that came into play, our shareholders in Tokyo, we realized that we needed to, reinvent ourselves by integrating the great history that we have, because we started as a very purpose-driven company back in the 1850s. And from there onwards, we went to our history books, analyzed what is what we did well in the past, what is what our ancestors were very much adamant. We discovered that in 1972, we already had a campaign to remove sugars from our products. So what we did was to start looking at where we came from and then say, what's happening today in the market? What is what people expect from our brand? What can we do that is bigger than ourselves in terms of financial performance? So as a way to transform our business, we realized that we needed to become a sustainable company. And that's how we ignited this growth that has started again back in 2019. We grew 2.6% after years of declining revenues. And last year, we actually grew double digits. So it is a successful, so far, so good journey that is taking us to becoming a much more relevant brand for consumers around the world, with the intent to preserve our goodness from a legacy point of view, a brand that has been present in many countries around the world that we want to continue driving moving forward.
You mentioned the change towards being more of a purpose-driven organization. What does that mean to you folks, and how does that play out in day-to-day activities?
It means that we are passionate about what we produce today. We are passionate about being a verticalized business that has access to growers and our own farms around the world, particularly in Southeast Asia and in North America. It means that we want to convert the goodness of the earth into good nutrition, that as a purpose-led company, we believe is a human right. There are many people around the world, just in North America alone, that are dying because of bad nutrition. 678,000 people in America today, every single year, are dying because of foodborne diseases related to bad nutrition. It's actually worse than COVID. It's an epidemic of disproportional tragic levels. So we realized that if we start campaigning or becoming much more aware internally, but also externally about what good food is all about, which has to be accessible to as many people as possible, being affordable, being available, being acceptable by our consumers, we will start growing our business again and do something that is bigger than ourselves, that is just to grow the top line and do good financials as a business. So we are a bunch of people who are believing that doing good as a business is essential for us to actually grow and be sustainable for the long term. So it starts with the mission of the brand itself. It continues to how we play in the markets, how we communicate to consumers, how we treat our supply chain. And yes, we are finding pockets of inefficiencies. Fossil fuel consumption that has been increasing over the years. So now we're starting to decline in consumption of fossil fuels in our factories. Solar panels, green energy, less or no use of single plastics in our offices. So it is a transformation that will take time, but with intent to actually be proud of how we do business and not just how we do financials.
So, I mean, what you described is wonderful as we kind of understand this journey of sustainability that's happening to Dole. But Pier Luigi, if I was to ask you personally, do you mind elaborating a little bit on your career journey and how you ended up here today?
Yeah, so I started actually as an industrial engineer in an aerospace facility, building airplanes. And today I'm selling bananas. So it's quite a funny story. And I say that with due respect, clearly, because Dole is an amazing business. But my daughter keeps pulling my leg all the time saying, Dad, what is it that makes you so passionate about the work you do? So I've been for over 20 years in the food industry, both with Nestle and Unilever before joining Dole. And before that, I was a consultant in many industries with automotive, aerospace, appliances, and so on around the world. So for me, being born in Venezuela, in Latin America, out of Italian parents that left the country after the war, thinking that they could build a brighter future and then go beyond their own limits to actually create that wealth for the family and for themselves, was the most inspiring source of energy that actually made me work hard, do everything that I could at my best and be where I am today. So it's been 30 years plus of professional experience. I graduated in Latin America, in Venezuela, and then I went to the United States in Georgia Tech to get my master's degree in industrial engineering. And then I knew that I wanted to go back to Europe and Italy one day, which was my strong purpose at the time. I was lucky to get a great job there. And since there, it's been a fun ride, being a citizen of the world, not just in one country, proud to be Italian, but also now being a permanent resident in Singapore, where I'm enjoying living in Asia with my family and having a great ride here. So it's been a phenomenal journey. I'm an engineer by education, but always wanted to be a general manager. I was very intrigued about how you run businesses, how you lead people, how you actually manage an entire P&L to drive value for shareholders. Intrigued by working for big companies. So lucky that I managed to be, an executive board member for one of the biggest consumer goods companies in the world before I joined Dole. So my passion for Asia and the continuity in staying in foods is what actually allowed me to led me to stay here in Asia, in Singapore, where I'm enjoying professionally and personally a great life. So lucky me.
Well, it sounds phenomenal and it's a wonderful journey. You're obviously passionate about sustainability. I mean, the way you describe kind of the growth, your personal kind of journey and the personal journey as you folks had on sustainability, you clearly see value in it or impact, right? And as an organization, it definitely is at Dole, you folks see value in sustainability. Why should companies see value in sustainability, or what drives the value that comes from sustainability?
Great question. So until let's say 7, 8 years ago, it was hard to see financial value um, in investing in sustainable supply chains. We discovered that that was actually possible. Green energy became very affordable, and many other solutions on the technology side in how you do packaging and other means ended up proving that you can create financial value if you remove waste, if you transform your sources of energy, if you actually are looking for leaner organizations with better managed supply chains. So value in sustainability is not just about financial means, but also about how consumers, in consumer goods, it's important to have a brand position in an honest way that is not necessarily creating harm to the environment and is doing social good. So creating value means growing the business sustainably with the acceptance and the loyalty of your consumers, the people who are deciding in the supermarkets online to buy your products. So for us, for many companies today, this is not just about creating financial value, but staying in the markets with consumer acceptance. And moving forward, it's going to be like the entry ticket for companies to stay and be trusted by consumers. If you don't do that, your volumes are going to start to decline. You're going to have to start restructuring your company because your overheads will be too heavy for the margins that you create. And that will create a spiral that will be on continuous restructuring until you start cutting, divesting, selling businesses left and right. And then off you go. Someone else will buy your brand and it will integrate it with all the rest. And that will be the end of your business. So we as Dole actually went through that painful years. In 2013, part of our business, which is the one we are leading here from Singapore, was sold to a Japanese great company called Itochu, who ended up buying parts of the business from the North American owner at the time, who was based in California in the US. Today, there are actually 3 Doles around the world. One owned by Pepsi for beverages, for juices. The other one owned by Total Produce right now, which is a company that in Ireland that is now moving to the US, which has all the fresh produce for North America and Europe. And then us here in Asia for the fresh produce of this part of the world and the worldwide package business that I lead. So as you can see, over the years, if you don't keep yourself up to date, if you don't invest in growth, if you don't pay attention to what consumers expect from you, you will end up being broken in pieces. And then obviously that will be the end of the company itself. So I'm very passionate about doing what is good for our shareholders so we can create value for them, keep investing financially for the growth of the business, but it's also what is good for consumers and good for the planet. So people, planet, and prosperity are essentially how we have to run this business.
Pier Luigi, you mentioned this idea that it's becoming more of these sustainability elements are becoming more of a required need, or the things you need to have in place to just as a right to operate. Yet we still see there's a lot of companies that don't see the value of sustainability, or that you don't talk about sustainability. Why do you think these other companies aren't getting involved? Don't they see the writing on the wall?
I honestly don't know, Amrou. I think it's short-termism, is the notion of being here and now, trying to satisfy your line manager, your boss, and delivering, bottom line performance. I frankly don't know. I mean, so many times you end up in your career doing a job because you're getting well paid, and that you believe that that's what it takes you to the next step. Many companies perhaps don't see that. Shame of them, because I think that they will have no future. And by the way, how are you going to tell your families that, and your friends, that you're working for a company that is, destroying the planet? It's like doing something that is not good for you, neither for your loved ones. So I think even the young generations are wanting either to have their own businesses, create their own startups, being freelancers and very flexible in how they work, but also be part of companies that are doing something good for the planet, for society. Cool brands are the brands that are actually doing good. And we want to be a cool brand. And that comes with DNA. Yeah, there are many companies that want to reinvent themselves overnight by just projecting themselves as, good, sustainable business. But you'll be caught one day, sooner or later, if you don't believe with your own people internally, when you make the real choices about where to invest and how to play, if you don't believe in sustainability. So actually, today, more than ever before, with social media and the rest, if you are playing the game of wanting to be a purpose-led company without the intent, you will actually be crucified by social media and your own consumers.
So let's kind of talk about this intent. You spoke about a lot of the benefits that you folks are seeing by being involved in sustainability. Can you give us some examples of the financial benefit you've had from actually, walking the talk by truly putting sustainability practices in place?
The classical one is on environment. So we've been investing in biogas facilities, solar panels, and a much more stringent way of managing our operations in Southeast Asia. We delivered about $3.5 million in just one plant alone by actually focusing on how we use energy, where the sources of that energy comes from, and end up actually reducing that consumption, and at the same time, relying on green energy. That alone created about $3.5 million of cost savings. And I was actually a payback of less than 7 months. So that's one example. The other example is on, your product specifications. So do we need to have excessive amount of packaging into it? Are there other materials that are recyclable or compostable that will actually end up reducing the weight of your packaging and the cost that means to it? That's another example into it. So there are plenty. When you start reducing sugars, you end up reformulating the product and discovering that you have overspecified some of the ingredients. You want to have clean labels without artificial ingredients, which is what we want to do. You end up discovering that you have a new recipe that is tasting better and is costing less. But unless you pay that attention and you're obsessed about that, you will never create that value that shareholders and stakeholders will expect from you.
Perfect. I think that's a wonderful example on the environment. And I'd like to ask you something on societal benefits. You talked about kind of what you folks are doing with the farmers. And as Dole, it sounds like there's a lot of projects you have in place that were in the farmers that are in your supply chain. Farmers are typically on the ground for generations, right? They run a farm or they work on the land for generations and years. And so they have this long-term vision of sustainability, right? They want to pass that land on. But yet in a lot of other places, we see maybe that societal benefit doesn't transfer. We see farmers not taking care of their land or something else happening kind of on the societal. Can you tell us how you've been able to make it successful at Dole?
Yes. Well, first of all, we became farmers ourselves. So our DNA is about being verticalized and managing our own farms. And so that comes with who we are as a company. Then we have growers that are connected with our business, both in the Philippines, in Thailand. We're now opening a complete new reality in Sierra Leone, one of the poorest countries in the world, that is already benefiting with jobs of more than 1,500 people already working in our farms. So it starts with us internally, and then with our growers that are providing some of the other ingredients or goods to us. We believe that for us to be sustainable as a business, we have to invest on them. And that means providing planting materials or seeds, which provide quality, but also reduces their cost. We have brought now one of the most reputable NGOs called Solidaridad in Thailand, as an example, to help the farmers to reduce their costs, digitalize their activities, their operations, increase their yields, and increase their income. So we are in the early stages of helping farmers in Thailand to actually become digitally savvy, so they can reduce their costs and increase their income, so they can pass it to the next generation. It's, by the way, an industry under a huge amount of strain because of climate change, droughts, and then floods, unpredictability, La Nina, El Nino, which is actually creating a lot of strain to our farmers. So there is a long way to go for us to create more of that extended shareholder value. But we believe that if we open up to our farmers, raise the standards of quality, provide agricultural assistance, and more importantly, stability in sourcing for years to come, rather than having the middleman who is the trader in between, the broker that is trying to get the latest cent on savings, we're removing that away from our supply chain and dealing with the farmers directly. So we can pass those margins to them and then ensure that they keep investing in good agricultural practices, regenerative agriculture and things like that. So the company will continue to grow.
Perfect. So that was very insightful. We don't have commercial breaks here, so kind of let's take a 2-minute break to ask you some personal questions to learn a little bit more about you. I'm probably going to start with the most controversial one out there. What is the best tasting Dole fruit?
I've never eaten so much pineapple in my life. It has become my routine every single morning. I have 2 shots of antioxidants, which is heavily concentrated drinks of, berries of all kinds, and then 2 slices of pineapple every single morning. It's an anti-inflammatory made out of great enzymes called bromelain, good for your health, good for your skin, and you can tell, right?
Absolutely.
Very mindful about longevity. I'm 55 and I strongly believe that food is medicine, and certainly pineapple, I have the luxury of having great help at home that cuts it up for me fresh. If not, I have our own packaged products, and it's just a beauty fruit. Actually takes 18 months, 18 months to grow one single pineapple, since the plant comes up. So it's almost like a jewel. Actually, in the 1800s, one pineapple would be rented by the royal families in the UK for 8,000, 9,000 pounds at the time. Wow. Just to put it in the festive tables as an exposed jewel that would be quite rare in the rich families in those times. So I think that you can glorify whatever you work for, but in my case, I think the pineapple is just a wonderful fruit.
I did not know that, and we'll definitely make the kids more appreciative when we have pineapple at home. Keeping on kind of the personal side, what is the lowest grade you've ever received in college?
Well, I'm a failed computer scientist. So not just one grade in one course, but I learned in the 3rd year in my college days that computer science wasn't for me. Today, my 14-year-old daughter helps me to unblock my iPad. So a complete fail computer scientist, but certainly it gave me the logic and all the mental structures to analyze and do problem solving. I then became an industrial engineer and started working in factories, very passionate about creating things, building factories, building lines, building products, building brands. Now it's about building people and businesses. So I'm a builder as nature. And actually my purpose in life is build to last. That's how I sign my emails every day. So for me, that notion of doing something that can be sustained over the years, that you can leave a legacy when you move on, look back and be proud of what you are leaving behind, certainly drives and creates a lot of energy in myself. But in school, I wasn't a great student. I was working hard, but not intellectually the brightest. I was impressed by many of my friends who would pick it up just half of the time that I would. But I've been working very hard in my life to be where I am, and certainly it's far from over. So hopefully for the next 20 years, I keep having fun in what I'm doing today.
It's good to know that hard work pays off. You mentioned technology. So I'd ask you, if you look at your phone or you think of your phone, what is one app on your smartphone that you cannot live without?
Ways and anything that will help me to drive around, because I get lost very easily. I'm addicted to my phone. Actually, there are some apps that actually help you to not be so addictive to it. So sometimes when I need to work and concentrate, I just put those kind of games that if you pick up your phone, you lose or you kill a tree. So I'm actually even on that one as well. But I would say I'm doing a lot of meditation nowadays with COVID and all these tremendous uncertain times. You need to stay mentally healthy. And there is amazing products out there that will certainly help you to find yourself, be more mindful, discover the power of meditation, which is what I've done to keep myself balanced, energized, and moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that personal side. It's always good to know the people we speak to are wonderful and great individuals in addition to being great at their job.
Sure.
We'll shift kind of going back on the sustainability. You mentioned a lot of things that kind of make sense for Dole and for farmers. Do you think that sustainability is just something that works in the FMCG industry or just industries that are very consumer facing, or is it really applicable to all industries?
To all industries. I was in a panel the other day with an insurance company, and they were talking about their own greenhouse gas emissions and footprint, how much they travel, how much energy they consume. Blockchain today has been tremendously challenged, banking system, because of the intense use of energy. You saw the tweet of Elon Musk about moving away from Bitcoins, which collapsed the market. So whether you're in financial services, whether you are in FMCG, whether you're in automotive, electrical vehicles, I mean, I feel sorry for the dinosaur industries of oil and gas, because unless they totally reinvent themselves, they will have no future. So any industry today, anyone has to ask himself or herself, what can we do personally and what can we do as a company, as a team, as a unit in our own organizations to alleviate the immense amount of strain that we're putting into this planet, to actually respect society. And those stakeholders are our suppliers, our customers, our communities around that are benefiting directly or indirectly from the way we do business. So it's just the new norm today. I'll be surprised if there will be no annual report of any company in any sector that will not be providing an ESG report or any kind of review about how they are working to improve the way they do business and respect the planet more.
You mentioned ESG reports and or companies talking about their impact on the environment or society. And we've been talking about sustainability in general, but how do we go about measuring it? How do I, compare or look at company A and company B and understand, which one is doing a better job in sustainability, or what are the things I should be looking at or people can look at?
Absolutely. Great question. Early days, there is no standard. We're even learning ourselves how to measure greenhouse gas emissions. There are carbon equivalents in terms of overall gas emissions that we do as a company. There is no standard reporting or metrics. This is certainly the next evolution that is required across industries today. You read a lot about nomenclature entities that are trying to define the new standards. It's very subjective. It's very hard to measure, by the way. We are working to find ourselves into a product that not only will communicate nutrition facts, but also environmental facts, which savvy consumers want to know more of. So what's your supply chain about? Where is this product coming from? We have consumers, we're far from perfect, by the way. The way I talk feels like we're just a perfect company. We're not. We had consumers complaining to us because we end up sourcing fruits from Latin America, processing them in Southeast Asia, and then selling them in the US. So that's something that we cannot hide, that we need to certainly improve. The carbon emissions from that very long worldwide supply chain, global supply chain, although it's an amazing task from a planning and logistics perspective, is certainly not being appreciated by consumers. And we believe we can do much better than that. So we're investing in capacity where the ingredients are coming from, so we can have innovative products that do not have such a high carbon footprint. I used to work proudly for Ben & Jerry's in the past. You sell ice cream in Australia that are produced in Vermont in the US, and they're frozen. So companies need to continuously find ways to reshape their supply chains. But how we measure that is still requiring a lot of work. And I think that that's certainly something where the industry needs to get together to find the best standardization for it.
So I really like this kind of caloric example you gave us. So if we look at food, on the back of food or the front label, there's maybe calories, sugars, a lot of information that we get. What's one thing you can tell our audience and potential customers that they should be looking for to help better understand how a company is doing on sustainability? Because we don't have anything that's next to caloric value
Yeah.
metrics now?
Well, first, make sure that when you buy whatever good that you bring home or that you consume on out of home, that you are looking for packaging that at least is claimed to be recyclable. That's the minimum that you should be looking at when you buy, a tray in a convenience store, or you want to eat on the street. Am I buying something that is black with plastics that is basically not recyclable? It's harming the environment, because all this stuff ends up being incinerated, and that itself is damaging the environment. Even though they claim to have no landfills in some countries more developed than others, you need to see whether plastics and the packaging that you buy is being recyclable. Then there is the supply chain behind. So there are many reputable organizations like Fairtrade that are actually certifying, what are the practices behind how you do sourcing, how you bring the products and you deal with your suppliers along your supply chain. And I think that's an important element. I would say for your own health, look at the ingredients list, the food that you buy. I'm particularly skeptical, although I'm open-minded about plant-based meats. Look at all the ingredients of plant-based meats today. That's one of the biggest dilemmas that I face personally. I don't have the right or wrong point of view on this, but you want to be plant-based because it helps the environment. But how much of artificial stuff are you eating for the sake of not getting beef from nature? Of course, animal welfare is important. So I'm trapped in that dilemma today, observing and evolving myself. Hopefully cell-based meats will give something new to the industry. But even there is a lot of processing stuff. So I don't know. I'm actually still exploring that space. But ingredients list for your own health, it's very important too. So I would say if you just keep an eye on those, not just calories, but the ingredients list, the packaging, the supply chain. Many products today have QR codes. So try to scan them, see what companies are saying of where the supply chains are. We need to quickly catch up as Dole in that space. We're not telling enough to consumers about our own supply chains. That's a big job to be done. So more and more people will be looking at websites, understanding what brands are doing, learning from the best. Patagonia is just one of the most inspiring, authentic examples of purpose-led companies. So, my kids are certainly much more savvy than I. They will not want to, be loyal to brands which are not doing something good today. And social media says a lot about what the brands are all about. And I think that's the ultimate position that a company needs to have.
Thank you, and I agree. It's a dilemma, and I don't think we have a perfect answer yet. But educating kind of yourself along the way helps enrich you in the process. Got a couple of questions now on the kind of the field of sustainability and starting the journey. So, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's just starting their business career, maybe fresh in school or ready to graduate from university? How can they get involved in sustainability? What are the things that they should be doing?
Well, if you have the chance, as you are studying, to do an internship in a company with, that touches on the field of sustainability, no matter whether you're an MBA student or you are, marketing, whatever, or sciences, technologies, I think that we all need to build that awareness. I think time is short for us to reverse the global warming trend that we see, that I'm very concerned about. Until now, it was all about our kids. Now this is on our skin, on our face. I mean, you see these, climatic changes, which are tremendously concerning. And I'm particularly paranoid about this. That's why we're driving hard the transformation of our own business. So as a student, ask yourself, can I do an internship that will expose me to companies that are really claiming from their website, for their brands, for what they claim, for what they do, that are being honest about being sustainable. And then when you're being interviewed, I think I always appraise people for the quality of the questions they ask, not just of the quality of the answers they provide. So, prepare yourself for a good interview by understanding what the company is about. It's not just the salary, the title, the brand name, but also what companies do. So ask yourself, how you do business. Ask your interviewer, can you tell me what are your biggest challenges? How are you approaching sustainability? What is your brand standing for? And that would qualify you as a great mind that is there to provide and bring change, innovation, transformation, which is what companies need nowadays.
Kind of on this same focus, what advice would you have for somebody who's been out in industry for a little while? The opportunity of internships isn't there. They're, been out for 15 or so years out of work, out of university. How can they pivot into the field of sustainability?
Well, either you do it internally with your own company by, asking to be staffed or appointed in projects that are doing something to improve the company standing as a sustainable company. I believe that every company should have internal projects with some stakeholders and others to transform themselves into more sustainable businesses. So I think it's exciting. You discover technology, you discover new metrics, financials. It teaches you how the supply chain around you works and how can companies become more sustainable. So whether it's a project-based assignment, whether it's becoming part of a team that is transforming the business to be much more sustainable, certainly that's one thing to do. If not, because you find the company not being committed to it, 10, 15 years, you're just in the baby steps of your career. So keep exploring around you. I tell my people, I love the fact that you're getting offers from outside, because it means that if you stay, it's because you love the job you're doing. And as such, you're doing a great job itself. So don't stop exploring the world around you. Career lives are like turtles. If you don't put your neck out, you don't move. So you have to certainly keep your eyes open, not disrespecting the loyalty for your own company. Don't get me wrong. I think we have to be 200% vested in what we do, but it doesn't mean that we need to keep asking ourselves, what am I going? What am I doing? Am I doing something that really is adding value to this company? Am I learning something new every day? Do I have an inspiring purpose individually and as collective, as a team, as a unit, as a company? So those mindful questions is what has taken me a long way in my career. I've been 10 years in Nestle, 10 years in Unilever. Most likely in Dole, I would stay the same or more. But being loyal to your own company doesn't mean that you have to be only with your head down, expecting to be told what to do. Be proactive, bring change. Ask yourself, how can I make a difference? And when you have that continuous level of slight discomfort, you will end up growing professionally and making an impact that will make you proud. And that's what's worth about hard work. It's not just about getting a good salary, a good promotion, a good title, but realizing that when you look back, you find yourself much more developed, much more grown up. And if I look myself 30 years ago, in my first interview, I still laugh about how I was even myself at the time. Today, I still believe that I have a lot to learn, mature, evolve, transcend as an individual. So that evolution comes with a company that is also progressive as well. And if you're not, it's time to change. Life is very short for you to waste it in doing things that are not exciting, are not making a difference in the world.
Great advice. Thank you very much for that. And it's good to know kind of this reiteration of hard work and the journey that goes overall. We've been talking for a while about this idea of sustainability, corporate social responsibility, and the impact that organizations have on the environment and society. If we can shift for just a second and talk about, from our perspective as individuals, as consumers, thinking about our personal social responsibility, are there some things that come to mind that you can tell us of what we as individuals can do and can change so we can have a better impact on the environment and society?
I would say one simple thing, but it's extremely powerful. The power that we have in the choices we make when we buy our products is the same power that democracy has. So your vote counts. And when you aggregate them all, you can change systems. And same thing happens for companies. So although it's a small action, it makes a big difference. So be mindful about the products that you buy. Be proactive in engaging with the consumer lines or the social platforms that companies have to raise your own concern if you want to be proactive about it. But I would say the simplest thing to do is to make the right choice. The choice for companies that have purposeful brands and that are really committed to doing good for society and for the environment. And when you start doing that, your word of mouth, what you tell your friends, what you buy and how you buy, what you communicate in your own social media channels is tremendously watched by companies which are marketing intensive. And they will be looking at you in a way that you cannot even imagine. Sometimes you're talking at home and about specific things, and then you get an advertisement coming in which is related to what you've been talking about. So that's not just coincidence. That's companies actually realizing what are you being mindful about. And if you keep on hammering the same topic over and over, teenagers, Greta herself has made a huge difference to the world. So you can raise your voice, you can join others. Look what kids did in the last American campaign, the elections. They have tremendous power. And when you rally together, when you join groups, when you follow those who are really influential, you are creating an amazing movement that certainly can change this world, much more than what you can imagine by that simple choice. Oh, I'm just going to buy this because I need it and nothing else. There are many choices there that you can make in order to change this world in the power of your choice, the choice of what you buy and what you say.
Wonderful advice. And I truly appreciate the passion with which that came through. So thank you for really sharing that.
Pleasure.
I want to really thank you very much for your time, Pier Luigi, and appreciate really all the insight and all the information you've shared with us. Is there any parting thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Well, as we said in our latest campaigns, our Dole promise, we are far from perfect. I wake up every day thinking that I have so much to do that lucky me is not seen as a sort of stress, but a source of energy to get that movement going and rally our teams, our people to actually make a difference in this world. So if you want to join us, write to us. We have the Sunshine for All Fund. If you have a startup, you think you have a good product, a good solution, or any recommendations, I mean, I'm in LinkedIn, so feel free to send me notes. Let's connect. Let's do something together. I don't like being in industry forums where you talk to yourselves about what companies need to do. I would rather get input from the young generations, the activists of this world that can tell us where we stink, where we suck, and where we need to change. And I think that's a sign of confidence and maturity is accepting where you still have to improve, where you're making your mistakes. And I think that consumers, people, public has to tell us, how can we do better business? And if we do that, we'll be much more sustainable for the long term. So write to me and tell us how to improve and find a way to keep yourself fresh, young. Innovation, learning is the secret of longevity. And if you stay active, if you want to make a difference, you certainly have a great life, God permitting. So thanks again for the time.
Wonderful advice. Thank you very much for your time, Pier Luigi. You have yourself a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too as well, Amrou. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me here. All the best.